I want to make an experiment. I'm going to open one halacha, one Jewish law in a standard book of common Jewish law called Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, a concise Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch used to be the main code of law about 500 years ago, and then about 150 or so years ago was a concise Shulchan Aruch written by somebody who used to live in Austria-Hungary, which now is part of Ukraine, the city called Ungvar. So this person wrote a very short book which includes pretty much all the laws that a Jew has to know today. Certain rare laws that deal with the temple and things like that are not included, only what's common and what is applicable today. So I'm going to just open one halacha and we'll learn it together. I don't know if this is just an interesting experiment to try. Okay, here we go. The chapter is Tzadi Dalet. The purpose of this experiment is just to give you an example of one Jewish halacha, a type of thing that applies to us today. So the chapter deals with what's called Eruvi Chatzirot. What is the subject? So when a lot of people live in a common area, they cannot carry on Shabbat from one domain to another, even if it is surrounded by walls, even if it's inside the building. Let's say in the Soviet Union, they used to have many families living in one apartment. They used to call it common apartment. In America, Baruch Hashem, this is not common to have an apartment where a few families live together. But there are possibilities that a few apartments are in the same building, right? A larger building. Or another possibility is two private houses and they own a common yard. So the yard may be surrounded by some kind of a fence, and still we wouldn't be able to carry from the house to the yard or back unless an Eruv is made. So an Eruv is what combines the domains, makes it one common domain. So that's what's called Eruvi Chatzirot. The combination of the Eruv is, the word Eruv itself means mixing. It probably is similar, has the same root as the word Erev, which is evening. In the evening, the shadows, the way things look are becoming more and more mixed, right? As the sun goes down and becomes darker and darker, one cannot distinguish different things. So that's why maybe it's called Erev, mixing. As opposed to Boker, the opposite. The word Boker, morning, comes from the root of distinguishing things. So as the morning comes, you can begin to distinguish again different things. At any rate, so Eruv Chatzirot mixes the domains, makes it all one common domain. And it's done using food. As usual, when people can share the food, in a sense they all become one family. So one of the purposes of Eruv Chatzirot, as the Talmud Yerushalmi, what's called Jerusalem Talmud, or another name for it is Talmud of Eretz Israel, the Talmud of the land of Israel, as opposed to Babylonian Talmud. The main Talmud that's usually learned is Babylonian Talmud, but there's also Talmud of Eretz Israel. They used to translate it into English as Palestinian Talmud until the Arabs, less than 100 years ago, started calling themselves Palestinians. So now it's not really translated that way. But in the older writings in English, you may see the term Palestinian Talmud. It means the Talmud of Eretz Israel. So the Talmud of Eretz Israel says that one of the purposes of Eruv is making peace. In a sense, families all become one, and its purpose is they used to gather a little bit of bread from each family and bake together, a little bit of flour from each family and bake together one piece of bread. So that was the ideal. But it's also possible for somebody just to share his bread with everybody else. So what is done is they take a box of matzah, let's say, or if it's bread, the bread will go bad after a week or two. So that's why usually matzah is used, because it can stay longer. You could then make one Eruv that will last a year or two. But if regular bread is used, then you have to make new Eruv every week, because it's just going to go bad later. So anyway, so he takes some of his bread or matzah and gives to somebody else to lift on behalf of everybody else. So in a way, he shares it. Says anybody else can come and eat of that Eruv. And that's how the combining of the domains serves in order that we could carry within that domain. Again, I'm emphasizing that the area is surrounded by certain walls. If the area has no tzurat hapetach and no wall, nothing that can make it one, then you cannot carry there no matter how many eruvs you make. Eruv only helps when the area itself is biblically one reshut, one area, one domain. But because there are different ownerships, a few houses that own a yard together, or a few apartments that have common building, or a few families that live in the same apartment. In all of these cases, the area itself biblically is considered one, but the rabbis made you also share the property in a sense, so that you all become one in terms of that. So I'm going to read one halacha from here just to give you an example. Of course, most of the Jewish law is very technical. It's very pedantic. It goes into great detail. For example, in this particular chapter, there are 27 halachot, 27 specific laws. So the first one says as follows: if there are two Jews or more who live in one yard, and each one has his own room, then it's not allowed to carry anything from one to the other, or from the common houses from the houses to the common yard, or from the yard to the houses, or from one house to another house. You cannot carry until you make an eruv. So it's a mitzvah, it's a commandment for them to make an eruv, meaning it's better if they make an eruv. When it's possible to make eruv, they should. It's not a good idea to just not care about it and say, okay, I'm not going to carry, and that's it. Because we want people to be able to carry on Shabbat when it's possible, where it's possible. So an eruv is a mitzvah to make. If it's possible to make it, we should make it. And one of the reasons is because if they don't make the eruv and they'll just abstain from carrying, what if they'll forget? What if there will be some kind of what's called michshol, a kind of stumbling block, right? If people will forget and carry something. So it's better to make an eruv when it's possible. Now today, in a lot of cases, I should mention that people call the word eruv not what Chazal called it, meaning they call eruv what we call tzurat hapetach. Tzurat hapetach means a kind of virtual exit, a kind of thing that looks like an entrance, but it works as a wall. Now, there are a lot of technicalities where you could use tzurat hapetach instead of a wall. So, for example, a lot of places, right near me, there is a block which has already three walls, what's called dead end. Meaning, my block where I live, it has only two sides of the street, but it's not a dead end. So it's not clear. There are different opinions if you could you could surround it with just tzurat hapetach. But the last block, the one after me, is a dead end. So they already have three walls. And the Talmud tells us once there are three walls, meaning once there are three sides of the street already surrounded by houses, there's only one exit. That's why it's a dead end. So in that area, you don't actually have to make a real wall in order to surround everything. All you have to do is do tzurat hapetach. And tzurat hapetach in this case is they put two vertical sticks and a rope on top of them. So it looks like a kind of virtual exit. So once you have three walls, you could definitely make a relatively easy correction to that area to make it permitted to carry inside. So in that area, the dead end, they all carry. They made an eruv, meaning they combined their houses by using bread, by using the food to make them all part of one family in a sense. And they also have the tzurat hapetach so that the area is surrounded. Like I said, on my block and in larger areas, there's already a dispute if you could make tzurat hapetach and if that's going to be kosher. But people usually call eruv that tzurat hapetach, meaning not the bread that combines the domains, but the tzurat hapetach itself. The virtual exit is what they call eruv. But really, Chazal never called tzurat hapetach eruv. Eruv is the bread. Tzurat hapetach is what makes it surrounded by, what makes it one domain, makes it surrounded so that you could carry inside. And on this I'm going to end. If you like this video, please press like.